All right, cool. Yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing about the Guild Wars. I know,
Just to
I'm sure.
just
Yeah,
to hop in on what he said,
yeah.
we have new stuff dropping in like a week, I guess, maybe. Yeah, in the next like 5 to 10 days for more group content. So that'll be dropping earlier than expeditions, but
Wow. Okay,
something for the healers to look forward
Yay.
to.
let's fucking go. That's awesome. I wish I could know what it is, but I'll be patiently
I'll
waiting, just
share.
like
I'll share
everyone
it
else in
today.
the community.
I'll
Oh,
share it
hell
later.
yeah. Okay, let's go.
Ooh.
Guys, if
So for anyone who doesn't know, like my favorite thing in game development for over a decade, kind of how I got into it is class design. I love anything when it comes to like classes, archetypes, stuff like that. And so I've been geeking out over reading through all of them. It's been taking a while as we literally had like hundreds of them sent in. And so, and majority of them are very well done. Like there's not really, I'd say maybe like 5% are just kind of like throwaways, like they didn't really like put any time or energy into it. But at least like 50% of them are actually like really solid ideas, and that's been almost the hardest part. Is a lot of them have like interesting elements to them that I've kind of like put over in notes and stuff like that, but a lot of them are just very good, and it's almost causing like decision paralysis where I keep rereading through so many of them because I'm like, shit, this is like so cool. And now I'm like, okay, there's like 20 archetypes we want to make that are based on these. We want to go through every single one of them, and I'm going through every single one of them, just because it's something that I love, but also I think it's good for me to go through all of them and really pick the top ones. But ultimately, there's a lot to go through, so still kind of chugging away at that. The team's like really aligned now on all the kind of final steps for patch 1.1.0. So there's not too much involvement on my side anymore. It's kind of just getting everything shipped and done. So I'll have more time to kind of go through the remaining. I think I'm like 50% through. But they're incredible. Like the community, not only very creative, because some of them are just really unique, but still very much fit our world and our lore. But then at the same time, way too many people in the community that actually are pretty good game designers. Like a lot of these, I'm like, holy shit, like this is like really well thought out and done. I assume a lot are from like veteran players and stuff who just really know the game well. And it's going to be so exciting to actually like build out some of these archetypes that the community created after Naturalist and Ballistics.
That's
If I may
awesome.
jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead, Lou.
Knight, the question to you, is the intention of this also to get some ideas for future archetypes? So is that
Yeah,
already basically
yeah.
confirmed?
So that's like we already had so many ideas on new archetypes that we want to build out, like a bard based archetype and kind of a monk based archetype. To be clear, MONK, not MUNK, but like a monk based archetype. And we have like a bunch of ideas, but it was also like it's cool to see kind of what the community wants, but also just like get the ideas rolling, because even as a big studio like we are, like there's still like when you crowdsource from hundreds of people, like you're gonna get very unique ideas and takes. So it's kind of a mixture of all of it. Yeah, so there'll definitely be a handful of them that either we use a lot of inspiration from, or we actually like there's a couple that I've reviewed and I'm like, this is like shippable. Like they just thought of like everything throughout the process. Yeah.
You're gonna have to add a lot of the names of the builds when you have free
Oh
archetypes.
yeah.
So you have the
Oh,
unique
we
names.
know.
That's gonna be
We know. We
increasingly
know.
harder.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it gets exponentially harder with each one that you add. But we'll just one day we'll just revert to like some other model. Like yeah.
So would you say there's kind of a limit you have in mind for how many builds there will be, or is it something that's open end and if you?
Oh no, it's completely open ended. Again, like we're not really capped by the naming side, because if we ever had to, we would just change the naming to be something like Evil Dark Knight or something like that, or even just changing it to like abbreviations for the actual archetypes. So not constrained there, but really a big thing that we see moving forward is we want to lean more into the archetype system, bringing in new archetypes and really bringing in just more and more depth there. And so yeah, and also we just really enjoy it. We love build like the ballistics and naturalist archetypes have been like some of our favorite game development side in a while. So
It's actually really cool for the variety and yeah.
Yeah, like one of my favorite MMOs was Final Fantasy 11, and a big part of it was like the sub job system, and I loved that. As like a tank, for example, you would want to level up like so many different sub jobs for each kind of different piece of content, and that's something that we really want to lean into. Is like, where do these have a good fit in content, especially when we start looking at the next stuff after expeditions, and really bringing in that BDO also does it great, where there's reasons to level other classes and stuff. So yeah.
Well,
Do you mind me asking a follow-up before we move on to the next?
yeah, go ahead.
Nido, you mentioned that you were excited about some specific elements about some of the different archetypes that were submitted. Is there anything of the first 50% that you've gone through that really stand out to you that'd be willing to share about your personal interest on some of these archetypes? Just specific elements, maybe?
Yeah, it's tricky because there's a lot that were submitted that like as a class it would be really cool, right? As like a class in like WoW or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't really fit too well as an archetype because again, an archetype's one of 3 pieces, and so it kind of felt too like in its own realm almost, right? Like it was like you would only play that archetype almost. But there was a lot of really just like interesting. I would say the best applications or submissions, I should say, were ones that very much looked at like how does this work with other archetypes in a really interesting way, but also different with different archetypes and different builds. But there was some like really interesting mechanics that people have brought in when they did kind of a more like full class as opposed to an archetype that we've actually taken a lot of inspiration from on just how could we include that in the game as a whole. So yeah, not really any like specific ones that I would mention, other than kind of those mechanics. But ultimately just some like really interesting stuff. Even one that was kind of like probably a little bit of bias here because I loved Corsair in Final Fantasy 11, but one that was kind of like an RNG based support class, and so maybe they took inspiration from Corsair in Final Fantasy 11, but cards come up and then based on the card, it like gives a different type of buff to the group, which is, I think those mechanics are really interesting because it makes your group play differently based on which card comes up. But again, that it comes off almost a little bit too much like a class mechanic. But I think there's interesting ways that we can tweak some of those really interesting ones to fit as an archetype as well.
Like Twisted Fate from League of Legends.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very much like that. And I think that's it can be frustrating to play. Like we notice many times when we introduce things like that, players are like, oh, just let us like select it. It's like, well, that's kind of the fun is you have to adjust, right? But I still think those mechanics can be really cool, especially when it's an archetype. So it's like optional. You don't have to play that archetype, you know?
That's awesome.
Beauty of RavenQuest.
Well, yeah. I'm really excited to see the outcome of the competition and who wins and what you guys end up choosing. I'm glad to hear that you're having fun, Niter.
It's going to be
I wish I could read.
Choice.
Yeah, I can imagine. I wish I could
we'll
read some submissions myself. Are you going to share more than the top? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely. We'll publish a bunch of them just because I want to share like what the community, because again, so many of them are so well done. And bonus points, by the way, to the people that actually add like concept arts and stuff. We always love that because it just gets our mind in it. But we'll definitely share more than just like the winners because ultimately there's so many good ones. It's going to be very hard to pick the winners. I already know it's going to be like picking 1 in 10 of like really solid submissions. So, but eventually, yeah, I'll make sure to refine it down to just the top ones. So
awesome. Well, speaking of archetypes, why don't we dive into 1.1.0, which is including 2 new archetypes, Naturalist and Ballistics, which I think the community is all super hyped for. I'm super hyped for. Niter, I know you're here to give us a bunch of alpha, talk about, upcoming updates. So I think this is your time to shine, give the community what they want, and, tell us what it is that you came here to say.
Yeah, it sounds good. So just so you guys know, like I'll do a full like RavenQuest official AMA and live stream and stuff to share everything. Right now, we're putting together a bunch of videos on so much of this. One of the big ones is the Quest 2.0 ecosystem because it's a very long video and we want to do things right and high quality, instead of just dropping like, yeah, we want to have a nice animated video, all that kind of stuff, because there's a lot that's going to be coming with that. And the same kind of goes for patch 1.1.0. Tricky part is when it comes to like a trailer or a showcase, you want things to be as polished as possible before recording it. So there's a few things that we're still finishing up, primarily expeditions. And but I'll kind of go through. So ultimately, patch 1.1.0 turned into something significantly bigger than we ever expected. You guys will see, we'll be posting an updated roadmap, and a lot of the stuff that was planned for like later this year will actually be coming already in patch 1.1.0. And with that, I've kind of mentioned that we've essentially dubbed it a mini expansion. At this point, I would actually just slap on expansion there. It will have its own kind of update name. And with that, it's become something very, very large that addresses, I would say, 99% of what the community is looking for in kind of every element of the game, whether it's related to quests, related to land, related to pieces of the game that they've been really wanting. Things like repeatable, like late game PvE content with expeditions, arena, new spawns, new archetypes, new weapon types, new reward pool structures, all that kind of stuff. But really, it's I guess our patch or expansion or whatever you want to say, that reflects on like our learning since not only moving into Web3, but also just since RavenQuest release and things that we feel need to be improved or new content or changes. And so ultimately, because of that, it will take a little bit of time here. I'm not talking like 3 months time or anything like that. All the wheels are in motion, and a lot of it is done already. The biggest thing is expeditions, which are not done yet. And it's a very, very, very big system. We were thinking about like trimming it down quite a bit to ship it earlier. But ultimately we love the full system so much, and we feel like it's something that will like stand the test of time. And so we really want to like fully cook on it. But with that, we're excited to share that we will be releasing RavenIdle quite soon. I believe it's 17th, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was the 17th. It'll be accessible to all landowners to do early play tests of it. We've already done like private invite tests for QA and all that kind of stuff. And so it's already a very polished product, but ultimately giving you guys a chance to try it out before anybody else. And then RavenIdle will be fully releasing before the end of June. We're planning pretty soon after the landowner playtest, but just to give landowners a chance to try our next product out before. And ultimately, this will be the first expansion of the Quest ecosystem. I'll be doing a full AMA and video and all that on what we've envisioned for the Quest ecosystem, because it's become something quite significant. But with RavenIdle, really, for anyone who doesn't know what it is, by the way, it's essentially akin to Melvor and old school RuneScape. If anyone hasn't played Melvor, but you have RuneScape nostalgia, I highly recommend it. If you're a busy person or you're just playing RavenQuest all day, because it's essentially an idle version of old school RuneScape. Incredibly fun. I played it a lot during COVID because I have nostalgia for old school RuneScape like many, but I also didn't have the time to commit to it. And it was really interesting because I had about 10 friends that played Melvor as well, and about half of them ended up starting to play RuneScape again because they were like, oh, like I don't, they had that kind of like, I don't want to go back to RuneScape. It's so much time, blah, blah, blah. But then after like a month of playing Melvor, they're like, oh shit, okay, I want to play like the full game now again. And then when they got like really busy in life again, they went back to Melvor and then back to RuneScape, and it just kind of kept them in that ecosystem in a really interesting way. And so with that, that's why we built out RavenIdle. It's again fully mobile. Well, it's web-based, so you can play on your mobile phone. You can play with Telegram, and it'll be in the Quest launcher. And actually, on top of that, possibly for launch, but likely it'll be like a week after because we don't want to put too many stacks on launch. You'll actually be able to play it within your RavenQuest client as well. So you'll actually be able to be playing, and while you're waiting for your friends to show up for a quest or you're waiting for a guild war to start, you'll actually be able to play RavenIdle directly from in-game as well. And essentially, again, it's an idle version of RavenQuest. So it's same IP, similar mechanics, but also a great way to just introduce people to the game mechanics, because RavenQuest is a very daunting and big game and complex game, and just highly accessible, being web browser based. There'll be some cool crossover cosmetics as well for anyone who plays RavenQuest. You'll be able to log in directly with your RavenQuest account, so you won't even have to make a new account. But we'll also have like Google login, Telegram, all that kind of stuff. And even if you make another account, you can actually link your account to your RavenQuest account at a later date if you choose to. And then with that, we've built out a full API as well. So you're able to actually, in RavenIdle, use your quest balance to obtain anything. And on top of that, landowners, you guys will be getting a few special treats as well with RavenIdle, which is really our first step of bringing cross utility across our game ecosystem for not only land, but the quest token as well.
Wow. Sounds like you guys have cooked up an incredible amount of stuff, Niter. I mean, I don't even know how you keep all this in your head. Like,
it's been chaos, but
I can imagine, man.
It's one of those things. Like, I think we showed it between our final playtest and release how much we cooked in that 2 months. And I remember, a lot of the community was like, "Oh, you guys aren't like dropping anything, and you're not really like sharing too much." And we just kind of kept saying, like, "Trust us, it'll be worth the wait. We promise. We'll deliver as we have." And you guys can assume that when we go quieter, it's because we're just mad cooking. And you guys will see that with patch 1.1.0, and also just with patch 1.0. We've really been looking at this as a big milestone in terms of, again, releasing on Epic Games. We've been working really hard with them for a while now to line up a really strong launch push on Epic Games instead of us just like randomly dropping on there. So we've been working a lot with their team there, and they're very excited about that. But then also just really what we see as a path forward for the Quest ecosystem. And I'll share kind of something that we've come to realize is, as you mentioned, RavenQuest, you guys believe is, and I think many probably here believe is the best Web3 game out there. And while there's a lot of really good stuff in the space, we do feel like we have an incredibly deep game and very special game for Web3. But we've actually noticed that that's like a good and bad thing. It's a good thing for people who actually like playing games, right? I think that's why you guys would see that we have a very heavy Web 2 audience compared to most Web 3 games, which usually have almost none. And this has a lot of benefits to it. But ultimately, RavenQuest is like almost too big and too deep of a game for a lot of Web 3 people. They want something really degen. They want something very simple. They want something that they can just hop into in a second and understand, simple gameplay loops. And so that's been something that we've been looking at with growing the studio and how we're growing it, in putting a lot of focus on, with that growth, on our kind of ecosystem titles being a lot more accessible, but also being a lot more like palatable. So RavenQuest really being like that focal point. I guess a good example is in many ways like WoW with Hearthstone and stuff like that, where how do you bring in games that people can jump into really easy, that may be Web3 native and are much more palatable, and then kind of evolve them to RavenQuest. But ultimately, all of them being in that Quest ecosystem, having full cross usage of NFTs in every single game we ship in that ecosystem. And having them all in one launcher, right? Allowing everybody to play from that launcher and see those other games and try those other games. And also, how do we make sure they each target a different demographic, right? So not looking at how do we build out 6 MMOs all on the same launcher, right? Where they're all cross-fighting for each other, but how do we bring out titles that each have something that's interesting, hits a different demographic that they can cross over from. And so, yeah, just really re-envisioning how we see that kind of path forward. We've said it a lot, but RavenQuest is really the foundation and the core of the ecosystem. But from there, it's really just the base of that ecosystem.
Quick question here. Would you say bundling all the content and the new updates into one bigger patch or expansion is in general your approach, or
Yeah.
is it more based off the Epic Games launch? Or
That's a great question, actually, Lou. It's both. So even without the Epic Games launch, it would still be our plan. The reality is, and when we've learned this now took us maybe 10 years to learn it. But the reality is doing one big update is way stronger for bringing back like veteran players and also bringing in new players. We now have more than enough data to see this, but doing like pushing full steam ahead and doing like weekly updates and stuff, it actually doesn't it doesn't achieve that goal very well. We're doing one very large update, achieves that much stronger. But then on top of that, also with Epic Games, that kind of just ties in really well. And that's also something that like if they're going to push us really hard on that platform, and while it is Epic Games, like the amount of users they actually bring is actually pretty insane, especially when you're like, if you're on Steam already, not so much, but we're self-published, right? We're just like literally download our website. We're not on any platforms. So it's a very big boost on that side. But that was something that they also were really looking for. Like, hey, if we're going to like push you guys hard and we're going to really do something big here, they were, wanting it to be around a big milestone update. So I would say respective of both, we would have taken this route. But it just kind of works out well that it's beneficial for both.
Yeah, I agree. The impact is definitely like more effective if you bundle it.
Yeah.
But also one more question: what do you think is the ideal timing between updates to keep the players engaged and come back? Like, what's a good rotational cycle?
I think what we've seen works best. Like, I think WoW does an interesting model where they kind of have like, okay, every 4 patches or whatever, we're going to drop a content update. And then every 2 patches, we're going to do this. And every 1 patch, we're going to balance or whatever. I think they have like an interesting model there. But ultimately, I think when it comes to like content and stuff, dropping those in larger patches works better. And what I think works better in very frequently is like adjustments to the game, right? So whether that's like changing the balance of certain systems or adjusting a certain part of the game, I think that you need to be much more proactive on, and but also like careful on it. It depends what it is, right? So obviously like certain economy balance things, you generally want to be quick and address right away. But then certain other balance parts of the game, you need to be very slow and calculated on to make sure you're not pushing in the wrong direction. But so like with that, like before patch 1.1.0, we obviously will still have updates and over the next weeks here. But included with that will actually be some new content. So some things I can share already, actually. We will be increasing the effective level cap from 75 to 80. This means that archetypes will be able to level up to level 80, increasing your stat caps as well up to level 80. And with that, we'll also be dropping boss bounties. So essentially, Maxer now will offer the ability for teams to group up and re-challenge like the iconic bosses around RavenQuest for additional rewards. So with that, RavenQuest emblems, a big amount of fame. And on top of that, we're kind of bringing that system in, one, because a lot of veteran players have been like, hey, these bosses were so much fun. It sucks that we only get to do them one time. But then also a lot of new players, they have a harder time finding a group for it, right? Because there's not that high of a density at that level as there was in the first month, right? And so with that, it allows you to actually have an easier time for newer players to find groups, because we noticed that was a big retention point for newer players joining the game, where they're like, I can't find a group for this, or it's just hard to, like, if you need to find 10 players for a certain boss, as a new player, like, while they definitely can, a lot just don't have the effort to go through that. And so those are things that are actually coming before 1.1.0 already that I can share. There's other things as well. But some of those things that we feel like we can drop those and it won't like devalue 1.1.0 in any way. Because 1.1.0 is said that way too many times now, is packed. It's honestly packed. When you guys see everything that's coming, and it hits kind of everything. It hits the PvE players, it hits the PvP players, the competitive players who want new archetypes and new weapons. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we saw, because like it was becoming a situation where like a lot of top players were like, okay, you're gonna have to pay me, and they're like, hey man, I just started the game or whatever. But now there's actually like a reason for them to just be like, okay, just come along in our group or whatever, or like they just have an easier time finding a group because now they can find players that have done it already, right? It doesn't even need to be like top players going back to do them. It can just be veteran or players that did it a few days ago, and they're like, oh yeah, I'll go do it again because I have the bounty for it now. And so that's really the goal of it. And I think those are the things that we need to put more and more focus on, is how do we improve those kind of loops in the game and those systems in the game. And yeah, I did drop a spoiler in the chat there, but the character Bazaar as well is it's a different team that works on this. By different team, I mean like they don't work on the game side, they work on more of the website stuff of things, but it's something that they've built out. There's a lot more than that. I just shared one screenshot of it, but basically being able to put your characters up for auction, it would just transfer it to a different account, and ultimately allowing that side of things as well. Again, things that we feel are really important in a game like this, especially when you comes to a patch 1.1.0. Weirdly enough, it actually leads to like higher player retention. We did quite a bit of digging into the many other games that have this, and it made me realize, even when I like go back to playing WoW, if I'm joining late in an expansion, I'm either not going to start or I'm going to buy a character, right? So I'm just like right there with everybody, because like I don't want to go and like grind all the gear and all that kind of stuff. To be clear, I only play PvP, so there's not too much of that. But like it brings in me wanting to play, right? And also when we're a Web3 based game, it makes complete sense, right?
Wow, that is insane. Wait, so I don't want to ask too many questions about this, but
I guess. I
yeah,
do
go
have
ahead,
one
go
from
ahead.
earlier. If
Yeah.
you want to move on to the next subject, more than welcome to. But Niter, what was the reasoning behind the pick behind moving to Epic, and is there possibility of going to other platforms in the future?
Absolutely. So the reason why for Epic is, again, we like to we want to build up instead of go to the peak and then kind of have not much after that. And so with that, like that's why we wanted to self-publish. We came to a really strong agreement with Epic, and that was part of it as well. We feel like the push there will be very significant, and it's still it's not an exclusivity thing or anything. They offered us exclusivity, we turned it down because we of course want to at some point be able to release on Steam, etc. And just any other platform as well. But we feel like Epic's a really good next step, and keeps kind of future milestones ahead for us as well.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you.
Oh man, I forgot my question. Oh yeah. Niter, I don't know if you can share, but the details. But I'm curious, like a little bit of the details about how this boss hunting is going to work. Is it going to be something that utilizes ranger bounty charges? Is there like a separate reward group? I'm assuming that's like exclusive to these bosses. That's a little bit different from the.
Yeah.
How do you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not. It uses obviously same NPC and lore, but it actually will be separate rewards. So it won't be tied to the Rangers Company rewards. You will. Right now, there's no really consistent way to get emblems. And emblems will be used in more and more stuff in the future here. And there's already a lot of players who they can't upgrade everything because they don't have enough emblems and stuff like that. And so this is basically a consistent way to get emblems, but also it'll give a pretty large amount of fame. And basically there'll be like a rotation for these bosses. So at different times, he will offer a boss bounty, and the entire game world will all have the same boss bounty. So it'll make finding groups significantly easier. It's not going to be like each player has their boss bounty. So basically when a new bounty is up, the entire game community kind of has a collective purpose and thing to go towards.
That's incredible. I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. If maybe it's a blessing and a curse too. I don't know if we're going to have hundreds of groups going to one area at once, or
hey,
hopefully
more reason for war, right?
Yeah, there you go. That's true, right? That's awesome though. Okay, so primary reward is to get more marked runes, which actually, yeah, I think that's very good. Like I noticed, after only buying a few Aether Scrolls, I was already running low on my runes, so very cool. And another thing, just to clarify, you were saying that like this is something that's going to roll out separate from 1.1.0. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, this will be coming. Both these kind of things with the effective level increase, and then also this will be coming quite soon here. The effective level increase, I believe, is coming first. I believe it's coming this week. And yeah, in the next few days, possibly here.
Wow.
And then I believe the boss bounties is either coming this week with it, or it'll be coming the Tuesday after, so in 9 days.
Awesome. Speaking of boss, we're actually about to tackle the shark boss right now as a group.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully nobody dies to the infamous rain. Stay together, guys. Avoid those blue circles, please.
Yeah. I can keep going, drop a little more alpha. So some things we're working on. I shared a teaser of the character bazaar in the chat for anyone who missed it. But some other things that we're also working on is we've talked about the death debt for a while on obviously how we wanted to change it. The reality is the formula has been a nightmare to try to adjust to achieve kind of all the things we wanted. And so we've actually taken a different direction on it. Instead, we're actually changing from the death system to a durability system. So instead, you will lose durability on equipment when you die, and then there'll also be some level of damage to durability just from playing with that equipment. But on top of that, ships and wagons will also have durability. That will also actually go down based on usage. This is something that we feel is very important to address because, and I think everyone here agrees, of people who are kind of just farming, running trade packs, and they're not really taking any risk or anything like that. And they're not really having any reason to not just keep spam running them. So we have a full new system coming with that. But then also we shared a little bit about adornments. These are basically new custom health plates that you will be able to unlock from different parts of the game, like being the top in Guild Wars. Everybody in that warband will have different kind of tiers of health bars. They're really sick. I can probably drop a teaser in the chat in a sec here. But then also like expeditions, arena, there'll be many different areas in the game that you unlock these by being in the top percentage. So it won't be like an achievement. It'll be like if you're in the top, you will then have that custom health plate when you're running around. And then another couple big ones. We're building out a staking system right now. We worked really, really hard on this because we didn't want to just follow the mold of staking systems that are just purely inflationary and just cause long-term harm. If we haven't shown everything, every action we take is a very long-term focus. And so we built out a really, really unique staking system with a few other groups. And so look, if we don't have a date on that just yet, but looking forward to dropping that as well. And then a big one that I know many people have been asking for is around basically reasons or ability to have more than 5 lands. This is something that we've wanted to tackle the right way because we don't want to just, like, we could just simply increase the cap in a second, but it can create an even bigger like gameplay imbalance there with how much EXP you're getting from it, etc. So we built out a really cool system around that, but basically just bringing a lot more incentive for people to have lands. And yeah.
Wow.
All right, I got a couple more things. Hold on, let me
yeah,
just rapid
yeah.
fire.
Oh, man. Oh, no way.
We've been rebuilding the currency exchange. Right now, while the people that use it a lot understand it well, it is very daunting for new players, and a lot are just super confused by it. And so we've actually been building out a new currency exchange where it's liquidity based. So not on the side of like where people add liquidity and stuff like that, but it'll basically have both sides of a pool, as one side is used more or put up more. So for example, people exchanging silver to quest, the prices will automatically self-balance based on what's remaining on each side. And it basically means that players, it's still technically peer-to-peer because as people are taking one side or putting in more of one side, the exchange amount changes, but it essentially allows players to get it instantly, which I know is a big thing for a lot of players. And also it's way simpler. So it'll behave just like the WoW token. So that's how the WoW token works. And basically you just click a button, want to exchange your quest for silver or silver for quest. So it's much simpler. And then something that we're really excited about, we don't have an ETA on this yet because this will not come with patch 1.1.0, but we're expecting to drop it soon after. Will actually be blueprints on cosmetics. So this was an idea. He's probably actually in here, but from a community member. Actually, yeah, I see him right now. The idea around blueprints for cosmetics. So essentially what we're planning to do is future cosmetics are going to not simply be like purchased or obtained by players, but players will actually be able to fight to get a very, 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 very rare drop of a blueprint for a certain cosmetic. And then everybody will be able to create that cosmetic, but there will be like a cost associated with it. So instead of it like being purchased and going to us, it'll be purchased and then part of it will get burned and then the rest will go to the person that holds the blueprint. And so that's something that we're also cooking up.
Can I just get one clarification on that new model for the currency exchange? Is that going to be an instant, like you were talking about how it's a little bit complicated? I myself, when I was starting wanting to convert over so I can push forward and get the silver that I need to do all the crafting and all the fun stuff, there was this lull, like it was like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes before it was fulfilled. Had no idea it would take that long. Is this something that you're talking about? It's like an instant exchange, and if that's the case, is that still going to be something that people can put in at certain tiers, and it's almost like a debt system that you're setting in back where people can convert and eventually it'll be fulfilled for the game to balance out? How is that going to work?
So with that, there will be like slippage elements and stuff to that as well, based on bigger orders. But ultimately, it will be like the WoW token. So it's just an instant exchange, which is really nice because it actually means we can tie in the silver and quest where you like pay with quest instead of silver. We actually tie that directly into that exchange as well, making it all from player to player, and just way simpler to understand. And again, as you mentioned, like when you want to grab something right away, it sucks when it's like, oh shit, I have to wait for this now, or or even trying to figure out how to use it. And accessibility is so much more important for systems like that than anything, right? So yeah.
Got it.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Is there anything left on your list there, Nider?
Yeah. Gems are coming too for equipment.
Ooh.
I feel
Jewel
like I
crafting as a
saw.
profession?
Not jewel crafting to start. These gems are a little bit separate from that. But yeah, gems that essentially further customize your gear. But it's a pretty unique system. It's not like WoW's gem system. It's a little bit more interesting than that. So, and gems will be coming from expeditions.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Like last epoch, gear gems. They're like gear modifiers, but very, very hard to acquire.
Gems will not be soulbound, no.
Interesting. Did you back at 1.1.0, did you have any interest in diving into Naturalist and Ballistics at all?
Sorry, I was reading a comment in the chat. What was that again?
Oh, no worries. I was going back to 1.1.0 and some of the teasers. We saw a teaser for one of the upcoming archetypes. Did you want to talk about the Naturalist and the Ballistic at all?
Yeah, I can talk lightly because we have a video dropping on both of them pretty soon here. But yeah, we have two new archetypes coming, Naturalist and Ballistic, or Ballistics. Naturalist is kind of a unique archetype because it's essentially like a melee magic damage dealer, but also quite heavily focused on support, control, but then also some kind of melee magic abilities. And then with that, we also have multiple new weapon types as well, with pistols, blunderbusses, totems, and magic gauntlets, essentially. So it's a melee magic weapon. And then totems are a new support weapon, so healers, you guys can look forward to that. And then pistols are dual-wield guns, blunderbuss, two-handed guns. With that, they obviously all have new weapon skills, new warforged skills, etc. And then ballistics is also quite unique, where it's kind of like a high damage dealing setup kind of based archetype. So the legacy spell is like mortars coming from a boat nearby, dropping on the area. And then a lot of like really interesting, it'll sync really well with like archery, especially. We felt like archery has been kind of missing something that fits really organic with it. Yeah, like really with the two new archetypes, a huge part of it was what do these sync well with, and can they also sync with everything to some degree? I think you guys are gonna absolutely love them. Dude, like ballistics is a little more straightforward, as you'd kind of expect. Like another kind of range damage dealer with its own unique elements. But Naturalist is a very unique archetype. The abilities, even the weapon type that kind of fits well with Naturalist is very unique. Yeah, for any like casters out there, support players out there, you're gonna really love it.
Will the Naturalist scale based off wisdom?
Sorry, everyone's asking if we're gonna add character marketplace, and they missed the teaser, I think. So I'm just gonna drop it again. Sorry, what was that again, Lou?
Will it scale based off wisdom? The Naturalist.
Yeah. So funny enough, for anyone who's an OG RavenDawn player here, we actually had abilities that scaled on wisdom previously, and it caused a lot of very tricky imbalances with that when suddenly they were able to get like the benefits of wisdom, but then also scale off it as well. It basically made like one build that was just impossible to balance. I know with like the gems, they have some cool kind of stuff cooking with that. Because it's always fun when you can add those like unique kind of loadouts. But Naturalist specifically won't the abilities won't scale specifically off wisdom.
And then one more question on the new stuff. The guns, will it be, or is it possible to have a gun and then a shield in the offhand, or maybe even a dagger?
Yep. Or a totem. Or a totem in the offhand.
Okay, that's cool.
Because,
yeah, because right now I don't think you can have daggers and some other weapons. What I don't remember actually what it was. Yeah, you cannot have, I think, a scepter and the daggers in offhand.
Yeah, no,
is
it'll
that ever gonna change, or?
That's interesting. I'll mention that to the team if there's a reason why they don't have that. Scepter and okay. Yeah, no, I'll definitely
A
check
bit
it out.
biased question, because I enjoy playing one hand and I want to be able to, switch either to the gun for the main hand or the dagger for the main hand, so I can basically play two builds. That would be cool. That's
also something we've been looking at a little bit too, is the ability to have two weapon loadouts. Obviously, like balancing this is difficult and very important, right? To make sure that players can't just switch to like something tanky when they're getting targeted and then switch off again. But I think there's interesting ways to do weapon loadouts that we've been kind of exploring a few different routes.
Nice.
Something.
Well, speaking of loadouts, I got a quick question for you on expeditions. I don't know if you're keeping this tucked away or not, but are we going to be using open world builds like our current character in expeditions, or the Aether Rift build type?
Yes,
setup?
sir. You'll be using your open world builds. So the cool part about expeditions and why it's taken so long to cook, I'll share a little bit about them. So basically, they're randomly generated runs. So we have like I think close to 100 now different cells. And then essentially these cells randomly load out to make every single run completely unique for the player. They all like interconnect perfectly. So each like room that you go into, or what we call cells, feels completely unique. But then on top of that, from within those cells, they also fully randomly load out depending on like different creature loadouts for each cell, traps, different puzzle mechanics. So some rooms will also be like kind of puzzle based, so you have to go through puzzles. But then on top of that, when you actually join, the dungeon or the expedition won't scale like automatically on your level. So basically, being a higher level, it's not like a wash in terms of your character strength. There will be a big benefit to it, but you're actually able to scale the expedition harder and harder, or not harder if you don't want to, as you go through the expedition. So as you clear cells or rooms in the expedition, you will, and also the path is random as well, so you won't know like exactly the way to go or anything like that. But from there, you'll actually select keys throughout the run, and each of those keys come with the pro of a different key tier will allow you to get more rewards at the end of the expedition. But it will also come with a random affliction, which will buff all of the creatures in the run as well. So either giving them like when they die, they explode, or they now start throwing daggers at you throughout the run. There's like, I think we have like 40 different afflictions. And then those tiers of afflictions are actually based on the key. So if you're going through a run and you're a stronger player and you're like, okay, I want to like make this harder, or i.e. get bigger rewards, you can pick those harder keys as you're clearing cells, and you're actually able to kind of control how hard you want the run to be and basically how much you're going to risk during that run. So obviously as it gets harder, you have a higher chance of dying throughout the run or to the boss at the end, because each run has a boss at the end as well. And all of those keys are buffing not only the boss, but all the creatures to the run. But then also you'll have a monk companion through your runs. And by doing kind of side things in the expedition, so whether it's saving prisoners through the expedition, there's also a bunch of like profession checks. So if you have like 75 wood cutting, you're able to cut through a log that's locking off one of these rooms or different paths. And by completing those kind of like side quests or side checks, you'll unlock new abilities for your monk. So your monk will be able to buff you in different ways, whether it's making it so every third attack you do will shoot out magic missiles to all nearby creatures, or making it so that you do like lightning strikes around your character. Something we really leaned into with expeditions was that roguelike feeling. We wanted every run to feel not only from the environment and the map to be completely unique, but your experience in that run to be completely unique. Like, what do the creatures do well? What are they bad at? What do you do well? What like new things did you unlock? Because it being like an instance kind of run experience and not something that's permanent, we realized like we can cook and get a little crazy on this. So if you're like a PoE fan or Diablo or just any roguelike, something we really leaned into was like, we want to make it so like you're going to have those god runs. You're going to have those really hard runs. You're going to have those bad runs. But then on top of that, you're going to have those runs where you're just running around blowing everything up around you. And so, yeah, it's a very deep system, a very big system, but one we're very excited about.
Maybe
Quick
some
questions.
Really fun content around that.
Yeah.
Is there a party size out yet for the expeditions?
Yeah. So we've mentioned it before. Expeditions will drop originally just as solo content. However, you can mark my words that we absolutely will have party content, or we will have party support for it as well. We're going to roll it out just with solo to begin, because balancing around party is obviously like another element. And we know when we drop it, like there's going to have to be some balance changes and some tweaks and adjustments. So we want to drop it out first as solo, get it in a really good spot, and then we add in, we plan to add duos and trios basically to it.
Is there also a cap to in what frequency you can do expeditions? Like
Yeah,
a weekly
so-
thing or...
Yeah, so expeditions will be much more frequent than Guild Wars, and also much more frequent than boss bounties. But essentially, the lore behind expeditions is at certain times, there'll be expedition camps all around the game world. It'll be something new that you guys see added to the game world. And these will be run by the trusty monks who are very good at tunneling through the world of RavenQuest. And you will, and at various times, they will basically be able to open up or discover a expedition, because these are like underground undead caverns. And essentially at different times, they'll open it up and it'll do a global announcement for the entire community, or across all servers, all channels. And you'll actually be able to go to that expedition and talk to the monks, and they will help you take their makeshift elevator down into the cavern for your expedition run.
Very cool. And is this like when it opens up for the whole community, is it something you have to compete for?
Jay,
Or
you're muted.
oh my goodness.
I was like, that's the thing, I know this man's talking.
Is this is it going to be something that we have to compete for, or like since it's individually based, is it like entering a rift, you kind of like enter a new instance of the game?
Yeah, so you won't have to compete over going into an expedition or anything like that, but we will have like many competition elements to it. So we will have adornments for the top expedition players, but also we will have a leaderboard that resets based on who had the largest run. So basically who had the highest key value. Because again, throughout a run, you'll take more and more keys, making the expedition harder and harder. And so we will have like a reward pool structured around that as well. That's something that we've talked a lot about, how we're going to be heavily changing the reward pool structure of RavenQuest. And really that's all around, not like right now we have a very socialist, I guess, approach where everyone's getting a little bit. And we're very much going to be pushing significantly heavier into the players that are really elite players and pushing their character to the max, that they are going to be getting the biggest amount of the rewards. But also we have actually a couple new reward models that are going to be coming in 2.0 that we're very excited about. And you guys have already kind of seen that a little bit with the change of the guild war structure, how the fame now is much higher for the top guilds, which obviously brings more rewards there. But we're also going to be adding more reward structures to guilds as well. So a shit ton of stuff to look forward to there. We've been really happy with the warband system, and it's now at a position where we're not like sweating 2 minutes before warbands start. That shit's gonna break and go to hell. So now we're pretty excited to be able to share that we're going to be starting to move forward now with the Champions League, which will not only be based around Guild Wars, but also there'll be PvE elements of that with expeditions, and then also Arena, which we've shared is Arena is similar to Rifts. You go in with a build. However, it's just straight into the fighting. No PvE side, no boss, nothing, just straight into the fighting. So
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was I think a lot of the community was a little bit frustrated, honestly, with the reward structure. So it's really actually reassuring to hear that like you guys are pushing it in a new direction. I mean, it's been incredible. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to talk shit. As you said, we've done so well
no,
lately.
you're totally right. No,
But
like the thing is, like we can do a lot right, and like we still want the feedback on things we don't do right. Because no game is ever perfect, and it'll never become perfect. It's always a moving target, right? It's always like, okay, we solved these things. These things are much better now. I mean, the Guild War system, people are way happier with it now. And then it's on to the next thing, right? It's like, okay, what's the next thing now for us to focus on? And with those like reworked reward pools and stuff, we see that coming really strong with 1.1.0 for a lot of different reasons. Also, this is a bigger piece of alpha. But I shared it recently that it did get approved on the legal side, because again, we are Canadian-based company. We have to be very diligent with how we implement things when it comes to Web3. And with that, the Landowner thing, it was approved recently, and it's in full Steam development now. But I probably shouldn't share too much in case it changes a little bit. But lots of things coming for landowners in 1.1.0 too.
Awesome. I totally understand. But if we're going to see any like exclusive, like you mentioned the keys, right? Where you can get different levels of keys in the expedition. If there might be some unlockable content, by owning land or owning a certain amount of cosmetic or like some sort of paid aspect, right? Not that, paid to play should be prioritized in any way, but if you guys have any plans to introduce some form of content down the road that's like exclusive unlock in-game content. Yeah.
So it's a really good point. Like, funny enough, something that when we did the model, like we wanted to make a Web3 game that wasn't like, okay, you have to kind of pay to get anything, let alone having to pay in the first place, right? Or own an NFT, just like play the game and stuff like that. It's just not the model we wanted to lean towards, and I think that's why we have so many more Web 2 players than most Web 3 games. But however, with that, there's also definitely areas that we feel do need to be leaned into more, in terms of the reality is we also are a Web3 game, and there's also certain models that do work really well. And while there's a lot of models that we love that other games do that we legally cannot do, unfortunately, because we just won't take those kind of risks, there are some very cool models that we've built out that we're again, very excited about for not only for land, but also just for players and especially players that play a lot. And the reality is, like, we try to take this approach of everyone gets some quest and whatnot. And that's been fine in some ways, but it's kind of put us in this weird purgatory where no one's like, oh, I'm going to play RavenQuest because like I'm doing great over there in terms of like earning quests and all that kind of stuff. But also, we're not like benefiting from that flow over, right? But then at the same time, we are giving quests to everybody still, right? So people that are having fun, they're getting that. And so with that, like leaning much more into ways that we can kind of bring people into a bigger part of the ecosystem, because the reality is too, like most of the biggest earners that are like not like hardcore players or doing whatever, it's from selling silver. And that's part of that's kind of like a good and bad thing. Like the good thing is we have a Web3 game that people actually give a shit enough about the in-game progression and currency that they're actually wanting to spend just real money on. And it's also partially because our currency exchange is just way too complex for like 90. We did a kind of a small poll, and it was like over 90% were like, yeah, I tried to use it, I just didn't like, I couldn't figure it out, so I just kind of dropped it and haven't touched it since. And so that encourages like a lot of real money trading. And we obviously have a lot of data. We currently do allow it, and I do think that's kind of just part of a Web3 game, but making better ways to facilitate that I think is really important. So that's not the route that people think they have to go down, so that they can just do it directly in game through the Quest ecosystem. But just based on like the data that we have from like very, very conservative data, there's been over $1 million made by people just doing RMT with silver. And so we've kind of like, we already have a play and earn game for those players anyways, that we don't really need to lean into giving everybody quest as a reward, right? And that's been something that we've realized over the last bit. So
I'm actually very happy to hear that you want to reward progress more, because just today I was doing some bosses with a guildmate, and he hasn't really done bosses yet, and also he hasn't really upgraded his character yet, because he said, yeah, why would I
what's the
spend
point?
silver on anything if I'm I'm better off just selling it because I can't
Exactly.
earn. And so like you at least want to force the people who want to make money to also reinvest in the character and progress.
Yeah. And
So yeah.
and that's a big part of like expeditions and other changes to different pieces of content that we're doing, is like, how do we make it so like a player wants to progress their character, like if they want to make more, they have to push into their character. And I'm not saying like spend quest, just spending silver itself is already a good sink, right? Because the reality is it just makes quest more valuable as well, tied to it. So yeah, I totally agree. Like that is how it should be, right? Like the reality is right now, most players don't have a lot of reason to at certain points spend silver or quest, right? Because they're like, oh, I'm kind of going to get the same rewards anyways. And that's obviously not a good loop, right? It, again, navigating Web3 has been very different for us as a traditional studio, understanding that like Web3 does want these things, right? They want reasons to really max out their character and get the best rewards. And so that's been something that we've had to adjust our approach to and understand better. And that's really why with patch 1.1.0, we have made it into something so big, because we want to deliver all those things at once. I think that's a big part of just how we want to do adornments. So the idea is that it will be like a visual flex. You're running around, you have a really cool custom health bar. I need to remember to drop that in the chat here. I'll do it after this. But yeah, that's kind of the idea, is we want to build out more of that side as well. Like with 1.1.0, we're trying to hit kind of every type of player with it, right? So we're bringing in new PvP stuff for that competitive group, bringing in expeditions for that late game PvE loop, trying to bring in a part that is exciting for each type of player. And I think achievements are definitely one of those as well. Be a minimum level that you have to be to do that boss. So like we still want to encourage people to want to level up, because certain bosses will be higher level. So you need that level to unlock the fame that you get from it. But then also higher level players will sink down to make it more challenging. But ultimately, the goal with this system is nothing too complex right now. Again, we have a very big update that we're cooking. So we want just to deliver something that brings a nice element to that and a good like kind of foundation that we can then from there add like, maybe tiered versions of those bosses with more mechanics and stuff like that. Because we want to do like an actual full, like just to clear something up, by the way, some people with expeditions, this is not meant to like replace like a raid type system. We wanted to bring in expeditions as that like hyper replayable content. This doesn't cancel out the idea of us bringing in like actual raids or larger scale dungeons with a 10-man group, stuff like that. I think that's very much a separate thing that we want to build out, or that we will build out. And so, yeah, just to touch on that, but then on the guild UI thing, the reality is UI changes are way more work than I think anybody who isn't an engineer thinks. It's one of those things that there's of course like so many UIs that we want to improve, from the marketplace to the guild UIs to the currency exchange. Guild UIs with adding professions and all that kind of stuff. It's just all scope, right? It's all like, when can we do this? And having, third-party tools is amazing. And I mean, if you look at WoW, like think about how long they relied on third-party tools for all this kind of stuff. It took them 15 years to improve the UI, and it's still pretty bad. But it's because it does take a lot of time to improve those. Many times it's like actually just rebuilding it and reprogramming it. But no doubt that we want to improve those. First, what we would want to do though is we first want to add like guild banks and stuff like that. But again, something that sounds simple to many people, but when you're like a game developer, you know that these things are actually hyper complex, especially when you have servers around the world with latency between them. What happens if a player on the Southeast Asia server pulls an item out and another player on the NA server pulls an item out at the same time, and there's 200 milliseconds ping? Does that item duplicate? Does it disappear? Like there's so many like complexities to that, but we'll be prioritizing that before improving the guild UI, just because we feel like that's very needed. But yeah, so that's kind of actually our plan for our next, I guess you could say, mini expansion. Is we want to bring a lot more content to the sea. So world bosses are something separate. Like we will have an ocean-based world boss, but also land-based world bosses as well. So those will be more PvP based, by the way. For anyone who doesn't know, I've shared a bit about the world boss system, but that'll be more on the PvP side. So open world reason to PvP. But with that, we actually have pretty big plans for an under the water kind of update to RavenQuest. With that, there's a lot of things that we want to add. I won't leak too many of those right now, but just the ability to do more with your boat, I guess you could say, and have more reasons to be out on the ocean rather than just fishing or trade packs or ganking somebody. But again, it's like we want to start bringing these updates where it brings a large update around something instead of just adding small little things. There's also like a storm-based system we want to add to the game with fishing and trade packs, and yeah, a lot of elements there. Yeah, the tricky part is it just further fragments the plunder players.
That's why I ask.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like we've made some pretty massive optimizations to the client and the game servers and just how it communicates. A lot of players have had a much better experience since those optimizations. We've had like our lead engineer just fully working on that stuff the last few weeks. Because yeah, again, any engineer in here knows that it's like finding a needle in a haystack many times. But with that, when it comes to Southeast Asia, we've been having legit nightmares over it. We work with OVH, and the reality is server providers in some areas are way lower like standards, even if it's the same company. This is something that we learned with Brazil. They're able to use old hardware there, where in like North America and EU, there's a lot of regulation around once hardware has gone to a certain age or usage, it has to be swapped out for new hardware. And oftentimes what those companies do is they just send that old hardware either down to another company in that other region, or they just use it like OVH, for example, on their Southeast Asia servers. And so what happens is the hardware is a lot less reliable. because as many Southeast Asia players have noticed, the Southeast Asia servers have way more problems than NA or EU, like significantly, like they just randomly drop, they randomly have network faults or connection issues. And so that's been something that we've been putting a lot of time into figuring out how to improve. A lot of that is just setting up proxies. So something we'll be doing for Brazil, but then also Southeast Asia, just setting up better proxy connections for those servers. That actually, like, in many cases can solve like 80% of the problems. But those are time consuming and pretty big things to build out, also very expensive. But very important to add in. We kind of want to, like, as you guys probably saw in our job posting, we did post something about Chinese localization. We plan to do a very big Southeast Asia push in the future because, funny enough, we have a game that's very well fitting for that demographic. It is, you know, Ultima Online was huge there. They love grind-based MMORPGs that are like very heavy creature killing, stuff like that. We have a very good and very accessible product, but we want to do that in its own push, like a big push around the Asia market. So something, something that we're already working on. It's actually funny enough, Final Fantasy 11 did it like 20 years ago, not with AI, but they had like pre-set up prompts because they had such a big amount, like all of us NA players were playing on the Japanese servers. And so they added that for cross communicating, right? So you put in like prompts and then it automatically knew what the translation was, right? So you had to like communicate with prompts, which wasn't ideal, but it was still like really big quality of life boost. And
Correct.
You're 100% bang on, like having just AI, like you type a message and it's like we already have language support, right? So if you're using Brazilian language on the client, all English messages could just be AI translated into Portuguese and vice versa, right? I think there's like huge opportunity there. Again, it always just comes down to scope, right? There's like a billion things we want to do, and it's always like, okay, put it on the roadmap. You know, we'll add this when we want or when we're able. But I think when you have a game that has so many different cultures playing together, things like that are incredibly beneficial, whether for recruiting, for communicating, or even just maybe a little bit of shit talk, right? So yeah. Listen, I want the community. So okay, we have the Quest API done, as well as like the NFT API. I want the community to peer pressure these guys into making mini games. Okay, everyone peer pressure them into making more RavenQuest mini games. Okay.
It sounds like that's what you guys are waiting on. Should we sideline everything else and just focus on the mini
sideline
games?
all of it, make the mini games. No, I'm kidding. The tools are amazing. I'm selfishly, maybe I shouldn't suggest you do this because our staff will just play the mini games all day. I touched on the announcement, but we're in like again, we've been a studio for a long time. We've seen the good and the bad times in traditional games, but of course in Web3 as well. And what we've seen every single time, what we've learned through it is the time to double down is when things look the worst. I mean, every investor knows this when it comes to, when is the best time to go into the market and stuff. It's whenever it looks the worst. And that's been exactly how we've looked at investing into things we're doing. We have like the most clear path forward that I think we've had in many, many, many years on what we need to, like, what milestones we need to hit for the Quest ecosystem, and what things we want to build around that. And you guys are a part of that. Obviously, we want to support as much as possible third-party groups as well, and that's why we built out the Quest API. But also with that, just the plans kind of ahead for the studio, scaling up quite a bit. It's a great time if you're able to be hiring as a game studio, because there's incredible talent out there, because a lot of studios have been having to close their doors, and many more are going to be. And so we're in a very fortunate position where we've always been very disciplined with funds that come in. We don't overspend just because times are good. We understand that times are good and bad, and if you can weather through the bad times, you benefit from the good times proportionally more than anyone else. Like, again, when the boom in 2021 happened in traditional gaming, tech, in Web3 and everything, a lot of people had, like, they kind of just started then, right? They raised money then, and then when the tough times come, they assumed that it was going to be these incredible times forever, and they didn't prep for that. And that's why we're seeing so many studios now closing their doors, unfortunately, and projects that just can't finish. And again, we've spoken with many studios that have come to us for kind of advice, like, do you have any ideas on what we can do, or we're gonna have to shut down in the next month? And unfortunately, it's one of those things. Like, it's like, I mean, we can go back and look at what you spent on frivolous stuff, but there's not really an answer now anymore. And but it positions us in a really strong spot. As sad as that is, because we have been very smart with that, and yeah, have a very strong path forward. So
always comforting to know is that you guys are as probably more confident in your guys' roadmap and your vision right now more than ever.
Yeah.
Which I think allows not only third-party builders to feel confident and a little comfy that we're continuing to invest in your guys' project, but
that's why I wanted to do the announcement, because obviously there is just a lot of panic in all markets, to be clear. Again, it's in tech. Like, I have a friend who's management at DoorDash, and they're, lots of these, it's not just Web3 gaming. It's not just traditional gaming. It's really a lot of stuff. And I just wanted to make sure that people can have a sense of comfort knowing that while there's a lot of chaos around, many groups are actually doing really well, because and it's gonna purge out the people that probably shouldn't have got that funding in the first place, or shouldn't have had that support from the community in the first place. But I just wanted to put that out to make sure that people understand, like, we've been around a long time, we've weathered storms before, and this is the least rough storm that we've ever had to face. And yeah, we're in a very good spot. Oh, absolutely. And like, I don't think a lot of the community understands like how much stuff we go through. Again, I've shared it before, but like, the community managers are always preparing, like, update pretty much daily, on just like, what are some pain points for the community? What do they want to see improved? What do they want to see changed or added? But also, like, the guardians, like, they're always pulling in those like kind of most commonly things mentioned and sharing with me as well. There's so many eyes that we have that are seeing the things you say, even if you feel like it's not, or if I can't, I get dozens and dozens of tags, literally hundreds of DMs a day. I can't respond to all of them. And I realize that trying to just slows my work down and the much bigger picture that I need to focus on. But they get to me. Like, I promise you that. They do get to me. And it just sometimes isn't going to be me responding directly. But you guys will see that with patch 1.1.0, a lot of ideas from the community are cooked into that. Yeah, we're always listening. And to us, it's very important to do that, because while a lot of ideas from the community can be really bad or really not well thought out, there's a lot of huge gems too. Yeah. Also, I'll say on that, like, you're preaching to the choir with me as well. Like, before I did this as a profession, like, I was also the most annoying gamer ever in the games that I was passionate about, because I just wanted it to be perfect. I wanted everything changed to make it as perfect as possible. So I would be like very vocal and quite aggressive as well. When I moved into the industry, I realized, oh shit, like, things take time. Some of the things are not as easy as I thought they probably would have been. And so it's why I've changed the way that I give feedback to games that I'm passionate about, because I understand that it is also still a person on the other side. And it's sometimes hard to know that, but like, keep that in mind. Like, our CMs, the guardians that volunteer to support and bring forward ideas to us, and they're, a huge part of what we do and getting ideas to us, like, they're all still people, right? They're all still people. When you're, being either aggressive or even passive aggressive, like, they're people. They know when you're being passive aggressive and a little shitty. When they're dealing with that all day, it can really, like, it sucks, right? And also will make them probably a little bit more hostile, because again, they still are people, even though their job is to work with the community and be helpful and all that kind of stuff. When you're getting battered down all day, it can be tough. Not to say that you guys do that. I'm just saying that in general, there's going to be days that they have good days, bad days. Maybe they have, personally a really bad day, and they might be a little bit more short-tempered. There's still, and same goes for me. Sometimes I'm very short-tempered as well to you guys, but ultimately, like, know that we do understand that it's coming out of a place of passion. Anyone who's talking in a Discord, in a game, or in an AMA like this, they love the game, right? They're not going to be there just to be negative all day. That's like a 1% of people, right? The reality is 99% of people just want the best. Just remember that there is a person on the other side of your message, right? When you send a message and it's like, hey, I think this would be a really cool idea. What do you guys think? I'm going to respond way better to that. A CM's going to respond way better to that. We're probably going to value it higher than you coming in all caps saying how shit something is. That's just how human nature is, right? And it's not to say that you're right or wrong in your messaging. It's just the way that you could have brought that message across could have come across a little better. Again, we all want the same thing. We all want the best game possible. We're here working every minute to make the best game possible, but things do take time. So.
Yeah. Please remind us, Snyder. Do you have an exact date for the upcoming AMA that you're going to be running, or like a rough date? You probably shared it, but I must have missed it.
I probably should not give that right now because otherwise the video editing team's going to murder me.
Okay.
Because they're cooking up some really big stuff for it. But it'll be soon.
Yeah. So okay. So soon. At like maybe less than a month. I don't know if you could give us like rough.
Definitely less than a month.
Okay, cool.
Yes, definitely.
I don't know if you can go any longer without a 3-hour AMA. I mean,
oh no, I know. I'm jonesing for it, man. This gave me a taste. I'm relapsing on this. Yeah.
Well,
you can go back and listen to it afterwards. Don't worry.
Yeah, we
cool,
are. Yeah, go ahead, Niner.
I'm gonna hop out.
Off. Yeah.
I'm gonna hop out. Yeah, you guys wrap it up. Again, thanks so much for like not only doing this but having me on again. You guys are always like super welcoming and let me do all my rambling, so I appreciate that. To the community, we'll have a very big AMA. It will be like a live stream AMA to share all about 1.1.0 and the Quest 2.0 ecosystem because things are changing in a big way, but also just expanding in a big way. The things that we're building around Quest, land NFTs, Raven cards, monks, everything. It'll be integrated in everything we do, but also we have some outside of our ecosystem stuff that'll be coming as well to the Quest ecosystem. So we very much believe that consistency is king. Continuing to build, continuing to have a path forward, and really what that looks like long term. So appreciate all of your guys' patience, trust, belief, support, every single thing around that. You guys are the lifeblood of this, and also third-party groups like RavenQuest Tools, building cool tools, doing stuff like this. It's amazing. It's so cool to see. Yeah, appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you guys.
I see you. Build mini games.